My name is Gloria Matthews, and I am 68 years old. I have always believed that family is the heart of everything, the thread that weaves our lives together through joy and sorrow, laughter and tears. I raised my only daughter, Vanessa, with all the love I had, pouring my hopes and dreams into her future. I never imagined that one day I would be left standing on the outside, watching her happiness from a distance, my heart aching with questions I could not answer. It began with a silence that grew louder with each passing week. Vanessa had always been close to me, even after she moved out for college and started her own life in the city. We spoke every Sunday, sharing stories and recipes, laughing about old memories. But as the months went by, her calls became less frequent, her voice more distant. I told myself she was busy, that work and life had simply gotten in the way. I tried not to worry, but a mother always knows when something is wrong. One afternoon, as I was tending to my roses in the backyard, my neighbor Mrs. Jenkins called out to me from across the fence. "Gloria, did you hear the news? Vanessa's getting married. I saw it on Facebook. Such a beautiful couple." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Married, my own daughter, and I hadn't heard a word about it. I forced a smile, thanked Mrs. Jenkins, and hurried inside, my hands trembling. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, willing it to ring, hoping Vanessa would call and explain. But the silence stretched on, heavy and unyielding. Days turned into weeks. I watched as friends and neighbors received invitations in the mail, their excitement bubbling over as they showed me the elegant envelopes, the gold-embossed lettering. My mailbox remained empty. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, that my invitation had been lost, that Vanessa would never exclude me from such an important day. But deep down, I knew the truth. The night before the wedding, I sat alone in my living room, the house eerily quiet. I looked through old photo albums, tracing Vanessa's life from her first steps to her high school graduation, her smile bright and full of promise. I wondered what I had done to deserve this, what words or actions had driven a wedge between us. The pain was sharp, a physical ache in my chest. But as the hours passed, my sorrow slowly gave way to resolve. I would not let bitterness define me. I would not let this moment be the end of our story. If I could not be there to witness my daughter's happiness, I would find another way to show her my love. I spent the night crafting a gift, something more meaningful than any store-bought present. I gathered photographs, letters, and small mementos from Vanessa's childhood. Her first drawing, a lock of hair from her first haircut, the ticket stub from our first movie together. I wrote a letter, pouring my heart onto the page, telling her how proud I was, how much I loved her, how I wished her all the happiness in the world. I placed everything in a beautiful wooden box, polished until it gleamed. I tied it with a ribbon the color of the sky on the day she was born, and attached a simple note, "For Vanessa, on your wedding day. Love, Mom." The next morning, I dressed in my Sunday best and drove to the church, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I waited outside, watching as guests arrived in their finest clothes, laughter and music spilling out onto the street. I saw Vanessa, radiant in her white dress, her arm linked with her new husband. My heart swelled with pride and sorrow. I handed the box to the usher, asking him to deliver it to Vanessa before the ceremony. He nodded, his eyes kind, and disappeared inside. I stood on the steps for a long moment, the sounds of celebration drifting around me. Then I turned and walked away, my head held high, my heart full of hope that my gift would speak the words I could not. The drive home from the church was a blur. I remember the sunlight flickering through the trees, the distant sound of church bells, and the ache in my chest that seemed to grow heavier with every mile. I tried to focus on the road, but my mind kept drifting back to Vanessa, my little girl, now a bride, beginning a new chapter without me. I wondered if she would open the box before the ceremony, or if it would sit unopened among the other gifts, just another package to be unwrapped and set aside. When I arrived home, the house felt emptier than ever. I wandered from room to room, touching the framed photos on the walls, the worn armchair where Vanessa used to curl up with her favorite books, The kitchen table where we'd shared countless meals and secrets. Every corner held a memory, a reminder of the bond we once shared. I tried to hold on to those memories, to let them comfort me, but the pain of being left out was sharp and unrelenting. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the world go by. Neighbors strolled past in their wedding finery, their laughter drifting through the open window. I wondered what they thought of me, the mother who hadn't been invited to her own daughter's wedding. I felt a flush of shame, but I pushed it aside. I knew my worth, even if Vanessa had forgotten it. As the afternoon wore on, I tried to distract myself with chores. I dusted the shelves, watered the plants, and baked a loaf of bread, filling the house with the comforting scent of yeast and warmth. But nothing could quiet the questions swirling in my mind. Why had Vanessa shut me out? Was it something I said, or something I failed to say? Had I been too protective, too critical, too present in her life? Or was it simply the way things go? Mothers and daughters growing apart as the years pass. I thought about calling her, about leaving a message to wish her well, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to intrude on her happiness, to make her feel guilty on what should be the best day of her life. Instead, I sat in silence, listening to the ticking of the clock, the distant hum of traffic, the soft sigh of the wind through the trees. As evening fell, I lit a candle and placed it on the windowsill, a small beacon of hope in the gathering darkness. I whispered a prayer for Vanessa, for her new husband, for the life they would build together. I asked for strength, for understanding, for the grace to let go of my hurt and hold on to love. The next morning, I woke early, the events of the previous day replaying in my mind. I tried to imagine Vanessa's reaction when she opened the box. Would she smile at the memories, or would she set it aside, unable to face the past? Would she read my letter, or would it remain sealed, my words unheard? I tried not to dwell on the possibilities, but it was impossible not to hope that my gift would reach her heart. I spent the day in the garden, pulling weeds and planting bulbs for the spring. The work was soothing, the earth cool and steady beneath my hands. I lost myself in the rhythm of digging and planting, letting the worries slip away with each shovelful of soil. By the time the sun began to set, I felt a little lighter, a little more at peace. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, the phone rang. My heart leapt into my throat when I saw Vanessa's name on the screen. I hesitated, my hand trembling, before finally answering. "Hello?" My voice was barely more than a whisper. There was a pause, then Vanessa's voice, soft and uncertain. "Hi, Mom." I closed my eyes, relief and fear mingling in my chest. "Hello, sweetheart. Congratulations." "Thank you," she said, her voice catching. I got your gift." I waited, afraid to say too much, afraid to say too little. "It was beautiful, Mom. The box, the photos, the letter. I cried when I read it. I didn't realize how much I missed you until I saw all those memories." Tears filled my eyes, and I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep from sobbing. "I miss you too, Vanessa, every day." There was another pause, then Vanessa spoke again, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have invited you. I was angry, and I let it get in the way. I thought I was protecting myself, but all I did was hurt both of us." I took a shaky breath, my heart aching with love and regret. We all make mistakes, sweetheart. What matters is that we find our way back to each other. Vanessa sniffled, and I could hear her trying to compose herself. "Can I come see you tomorrow? I want to talk. Really talk." A smile broke through my tears. "Of course, darling. I'll be here." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet, the weight of the past few weeks lifting from my shoulders. I realized that sometimes the greatest gifts are not the ones we give, but the ones we receive in return: understanding, forgiveness, and the chance to begin again. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks, my dreams filled with hope for the future. The next morning, I woke before dawn, sunlight just beginning to filter through the curtains. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of anticipation rather than dread. I moved through the house with purpose, tidying up the living room, fluffing the pillows, and setting out a plate of Vanessa's favorite lemon cookies. I even picked a few late-blooming roses from the garden, arranging them in a vase on the kitchen table. The house felt alive again, as if it too was waiting for Vanessa's return. As the morning wore on, I found myself glancing at the clock every few minutes, my nerves fluttering. I wondered what Vanessa would say, what I would say, and whether we could truly bridge the distance that had grown between us. I tried to remind myself that love was stronger than pride, that forgiveness was possible, even after so much hurt. At exactly 11 o'clock, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. My heart leapt as I hurried to the door, opening it just as Vanessa stepped onto the porch. She looked beautiful, her hair swept up in a loose bun, her eyes bright but rimmed with red. For a moment, we simply stood there, taking each other in, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. We embraced, holding each other tightly, and I felt the years melt away. For a moment, she was my little girl again, seeking comfort in my arms. When we finally pulled apart, I led her inside, and we sat at the kitchen table, the vase of roses between us. Vanessa reached for my hand, her fingers trembling. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I know I hurt you. I was angry, and I let it fester. I thought you didn't approve of my choices, that you judged me for marrying Mark. I didn't want to face your disappointment." I squeezed her hand, tears prickling my eyes. "Oh, Vanessa, I may not always understand your choices, but I have never stopped loving you. I only ever wanted you to be happy. If I was too critical or too protective, I'm sorry. I never meant to push you away." She shook her head, her own tears falling. "No, Mom. I should have talked to you. I should have told you how I felt instead of shutting you out. Mark kept asking if I wanted to invite you, but I kept saying no. I thought I was protecting myself, but all I did was make things worse." We sat in silence for a moment, the pain and regret between us slowly giving way to understanding. I reached for the box I had given her, which she had brought with her. She opened it, pulling out the photos and mementos, her fingers lingering on each one. "I forgot about this," she said, holding up a drawing she'd made in kindergarten. "You kept everything." "Of course I did," I replied, smiling through my tears. "Every memory, every milestone. You're my only child, Vanessa. You're my heart." She smiled, her eyes shining. "Thank you for the letter, Mom. It reminded me of all the good times, all the love we shared. I want to get back to that. I want you in my life." I nodded, relief and joy flooding my heart. "I want that too, sweetheart. More than anything." We spent the rest of the morning talking, really talking, for the first time in years. Vanessa told me about her new life with Mark, her hopes and fears, the challenges they faced as a young couple. I listened, offering advice only when she asked for it, trying to be the mother she needed rather than the one I thought I should be. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, Vanessa stood to leave. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Mom, for everything. I love you." "I love you too, Vanessa. Always." After she left, I sat in the quiet house, my heart full. I realized that the gift I had given her, the box of memories, the letter, the love, had done more than bridge the gap between us. It had opened a door to healing, to forgiveness, to a new beginning. That evening, as I watered the roses in the fading light, I thought about all the mothers and daughters who struggled to find their way back to each other. I hoped that our story might offer a glimmer of hope, a reminder that it's never too late to reach out, to forgive, to love. The days that followed Vanessa's visit felt lighter, as if a storm had finally passed and left the world washed clean. I found myself humming as I moved through the house, tending to small chores and lingering over the photos Vanessa had returned to the box. Each image was a window into the past, a birthday party in the backyard, a trip to the zoo, Vanessa's first day of school. I realized how much I had missed sharing these memories with her and how grateful I was for the chance to make new ones. Vanessa called me every evening that week, sometimes just to say hello, sometimes to share a story from her day. Our conversations were easy, filled with laughter and the gentle teasing that had always been a part of our relationship. She told me about her new job at the art gallery, about Mark's attempts to learn how to cook, about their plans to adopt a rescue dog. I listened, offering encouragement and the occasional bit of advice, careful not to overstep. One evening, Vanessa called with a special request. "Mom, Mark and I would love to have you over for dinner this weekend. We want to start fresh, as a family. Would you come?" My heart leapt at the invitation. "Of course, sweetheart, I'd love to." Saturday arrived with a sense of anticipation. I spent the morning baking a chocolate cake, Vanessa's favorite, and choosing a small bouquet of roses from the garden. I dressed in my best blouse and slacks, wanting to look my best for this new beginning. As I drove to Vanessa's apartment, I felt a flutter of nerves, but also a deep sense of hope. Mark greeted me at the door with a warm smile. He was tall and gentle, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. "It's so good to finally meet you, Mrs. Matthews," he said, taking the cake from my hands. "Vanessa's told me so much about you. Please call me Gloria," I replied, feeling the last of my nerves melt away. Vanessa appeared, her face alight with happiness. She hugged me tightly, then led me into the cozy living room. The apartment was filled with light, the walls adorned with Vanessa's artwork and photos of their adventures together. I felt a pang of pride, seeing how she had made a home for herself, how she had grown into the woman I always hoped she would be. Dinner was a joyful affair. Mark had prepared a delicious meal, roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and a crisp green salad. We talked and laughed, sharing stories and dreams for the future. I watched Vanessa and Mark together, the way they looked at each other, the easy affection between them, and I knew she had found someone who truly loved her. After dinner, we sat on the balcony, sipping tea as the city lights twinkled below. Vanessa turned to me, her expression serious. "Mom, I want to thank you again for the gift you sent. It meant more to me than I can say. I realized how much I need you in my life, how much I want you to be a part of our family." Tears filled my eyes as I reached for her hand. "You'll always have me, Vanessa." No matter what, Mark smiled, placing his hand over ours. "We're lucky to have you, Gloria. Your family." As the evening drew to a close, I hugged them both tightly, my heart overflowing with gratitude. I realized that the pain of being left out of the wedding had been replaced by something far more precious, a renewed bond with my daughter, a place in her new life, and the promise of many happy years to come. Driving home that night, I thought about the power of forgiveness, the importance of reaching out even when it hurts, and the unexpected gifts that can come from loss. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, moments of misunderstanding or hurt, but I also knew that our love was strong enough to weather any storm. The following week, I found myself reflecting on how quickly life can change. Just days before, I had felt like an outsider in my own family, but now I was being drawn back in, thread by thread. Vanessa's calls became a cherished part of my daily routine. Sometimes she'd call on her way home from work, her voice bright as she described a new exhibit at the gallery or a funny mishap with Mark in the kitchen. Other times, she'd call late at night, her voice softer, sharing her worries and dreams in the way she used to when she was a child. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was Vanessa, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mom, you'll never guess what happened today. The gallery director asked me to curate my first solo show. I'm terrified, but also so excited. I wanted you to be the first to know." I felt a surge of pride. "Oh, Vanessa, that's wonderful. You've worked so hard for this. I'm so proud of you." She laughed, a sound that warmed my heart. "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you. All those years you encouraged me to keep drawing, to keep painting, even when I doubted myself. It made all the difference." We talked for nearly an hour, planning the show, discussing ideas for themes and which pieces to include. Vanessa asked for my opinion on everything, from the color of the invitations to the arrangement of the artwork. I realized how much I had missed being a part of her creative world, and how grateful I was for this second chance. As the days passed, I became more involved in Vanessa's life than I had been in years. She invited me to help her select frames for her paintings, to meet with the gallery staff, and even to help with the catering for the opening night. I threw myself into the preparations, eager to support her in any way I could. One afternoon, as we were sorting through her old sketchbooks, Vanessa paused, her hand resting on a page filled with drawings of our old house. "Do you remember when I used to sit on the porch and draw the garden?" she asked, her voice wistful. I smiled, the memory vivid in my mind. "You'd sit for hours, lost in your own world. I used to worry you'd get sunburned, but you never seemed to notice." Vanessa laughed, her eyes shining. "Those were some of my happiest days. I think I want to include a few of these sketches in the show. They remind me of where I came from, of who I am." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I think that's a wonderful idea, sweetheart. People will see the love and history in your work." As the opening night approached, Vanessa grew more nervous. She called me every day, sometimes just to hear my voice, sometimes to ask for advice. I reassured her, reminding her of her talent and her strength, and promised to be there by her side. The night of the show arrived, and I dressed in my best dress, the one Vanessa had always said made me look elegant. I arrived at the gallery early, wanting to see everything before the crowds arrived. The space was transformed. Vanessa's paintings lined the walls, each one telling a story of her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. The sketches of our old house and garden were displayed in a place of honor, a tribute to the roots that had shaped her. As guests began to arrive, I watched Vanessa move through the room, greeting friends and strangers alike, her confidence growing with each compliment. Mark hovered nearby, beaming with pride, and I felt a surge of gratitude for the man who loved my daughter so well. At one point, Vanessa pulled me aside, her eyes shining with tears. "Mom, I'm so glad you're here. I know things haven't always been easy between us, but I want you to know how much I love you. Your gift, the box, the letter, it changed everything. It reminded me of who I am and of how much I need you in my life." I hugged her tightly, my own tears falling. "I love you too, Vanessa, more than words can say." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, conversation, and celebration. Vanessa's show was a resounding success, with several pieces selling before the night was over. As we packed up at the end of the night, Vanessa turned to me, her face glowing with happiness. "Thank you, Mom, for believing in me, for forgiving me, for never giving up on us." I smiled, my heart full. That's what mothers do, sweetheart. We love, we forgive, and we hold on to hope. As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey we had taken, the pain of being left out, the courage to reach out, the healing that had come from a simple gift. I realized that sometimes the greatest changes come from the smallest acts of love. The weeks after Vanessa's art show were filled with a new kind of closeness between us. We spoke almost every day, sometimes about big things, her plans for the future, my memories of her childhood, and sometimes about the smallest details, like what we were making for dinner or a funny story from the neighborhood. I found myself looking forward to her calls, my heart lifting each time I saw her name on the screen. One Saturday morning, Vanessa called with a special request. "Mom, would you come with me to the animal shelter? Mark and I are thinking about adopting a dog, but I want your opinion. You always had a way with animals." I laughed, remembering the parade of pets that had filled our home over the years, cats, dogs, even a rescued turtle one summer. "Of course, sweetheart, I'd love to." The shelter was bustling with families and volunteers. Vanessa and Mark greeted me at the entrance, their faces alight with excitement. We wandered through the rows of kennels, stopping to greet each dog, reading their stories posted on the doors. Vanessa knelt beside a shy brown mutt with soulful eyes, her hand gentle as she stroked his head. "I think this is the one," she whispered, looking up at me. "He reminds me of Max, remember?" I nodded, my heart swelling with memory. Max had been Vanessa's childhood companion, a loyal friend through every joy and sorrow. "He's perfect," I said, smiling. Mark completed the adoption paperwork, and soon we were driving home with their new dog, whom they named Charlie, curled up in the back seat. Vanessa beamed, her hand resting on Charlie's head. "Thank you for coming, Mom. I wanted you to be part of this." That afternoon, we took Charlie for a walk in the park, laughing as he chased after leaves and barked at squirrels. Vanessa and I sat on a bench watching Mark and Charlie play. She leaned her head on my shoulder, a gesture she hadn't made since she was a teenager. "I'm glad you're here, Mom," she said softly. "I missed this. I missed us." I wrapped my arm around her, holding her close. "I missed us too, Vanessa, but we have today and all the days to come." As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I realized how much had changed in just a few short months. The pain of being left out of Vanessa's wedding had faded, replaced by a deeper, more resilient love. We had found our way back to each other, not by pretending the hurt hadn't happened, but by facing it together with honesty and grace. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa invited me to join her and Mark for Sunday dinners, to help with gardening in their small backyard, and to attend Charlie's obedience classes. Each invitation was a thread, weaving me back into the fabric of her life. I cherished every moment, grateful for the second chance we had been given. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Vanessa turned to me, her eyes shining. "Mom, I want you to know that you're always welcome here. This is your home too." Tears filled my eyes as I reached for her hand. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you'll ever know." Mark smiled, raising his glass. "To family, old and new, near and far, always finding our way back to each other." We clinked our glasses, laughter and love filling the room. I realized that the gift I had sent to Vanessa on her wedding day had done more than bridge the gap between us. It had opened the door to a new chapter, one filled with hope, forgiveness, and the promise of many happy years to come. That night, as I drove home beneath a sky full of stars, I thought about all the mothers and daughters who struggle to find their way back to each other. I hoped that our story might offer a glimmer of hope, a reminder that it's never too late to reach out, to forgive, to love. As spring blossomed, so did the new traditions we created together. Vanessa and Mark's home became a gathering place not just for family, but for friends and neighbors as well. Sunday dinners grew into lively affairs, with laughter echoing through the rooms and Charlie weaving between our legs, hoping for scraps. I found myself looking forward to these evenings, the warmth of shared stories and the comfort of belonging filling a space in my heart I hadn't realized was empty. One Sunday, Vanessa surprised me with a special announcement. After dessert, she stood and tapped her glass, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mom, Mark and I have been talking, and we want you to be part of something important. We're renewing our vows this summer, and this time we want you right by our side." The room fell silent for a moment, and then everyone burst into applause. I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed by the gesture. Vanessa came to my side, taking my hands in hers. "I want you to walk me down the aisle, Mom. I want everyone to know how much you mean to me." I hugged her tightly, unable to find words. The pain of missing her wedding was still there, a scar that would never fully fade. But this moment was a balm, a chance to rewrite the story together. The months leading up to the vow renewal were filled with joyful planning. Vanessa included me in every detail, choosing the flowers, tasting cakes, picking out her dress. We spent afternoons flipping through bridal magazines, laughing at outrageous styles, and reminiscing about the past. Mark's family joined in, and soon the event became a celebration of not just Vanessa and Mark's love, but of the family we had all become. On the day of the ceremony, the sun shone bright and warm. The garden behind their house was transformed with white chairs, garlands of roses, and twinkling lights strung through the trees. Vanessa looked radiant in a simple, elegant dress, her hair adorned with fresh flowers. As I walked her down the aisle, my heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Mark waited at the altar, his eyes shining with love. The ceremony was intimate and heartfelt. Vanessa and Mark exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to cherish each other and to always make room for family. When it was my turn to speak, I shared a few words about forgiveness, about the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, and about the joy of second chances. Afterward, we celebrated with music, dancing, and a feast that lasted long into the night. Vanessa and I danced together, laughing as we tried to remember the steps to an old waltz. Mark joined in, and soon the whole family was on the dance floor, Charlie barking happily at our feet. As the evening drew to a close, Vanessa pulled me aside, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for loving me even when I made it hard, for forgiving me, for never giving up on us." I hugged her tightly, my own tears falling. "There's nothing you could do to make me stop loving you, Vanessa. You're my daughter, my heart. I'm so proud of the woman you've become." We stood together beneath the stars, the garden glowing with light and laughter. I realized that the gift I had sent on her wedding day had been the beginning of a new chapter for both of us, a chapter filled with hope, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter. The weeks after the vow renewal felt like a gentle dream, the kind you wake from smiling, certain that something in your life has shifted for the better. Vanessa and I grew closer than ever, our conversations deepening as we shared not just the joys but also the challenges of our lives. She confided in me about her fears of starting a family, her worries about balancing work and home, and her hopes for the future. I listened, offering advice when she asked, but mostly just being there, her mother, her friend, her confidant. One afternoon, as we sat together in her backyard, sipping iced tea and watching Charlie chase butterflies, Vanessa turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, do you ever regret anything? About us? About the past?" I considered her question, the sunlight warm on my face. "Of course I do, sweetheart. I regret the times I let my fears get in the way of understanding you. I regret not listening more, not trusting you to make your own choices. But I don't regret loving you or fighting for us, and I certainly don't regret sending that box on your wedding day. It was the only way I knew how to reach you." Vanessa smiled, her eyes shining. "That gift changed everything for me. It made me realize how much I needed you, how much I missed having you in my life. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "We all find our way in our own time. What matters is that we're here now." As the summer days stretched on, we created new traditions. Saturday morning walks at the farmer's market, movie nights with popcorn and old classics, afternoons spent painting together in the garden. Vanessa's art flourished, her work growing bolder and more expressive. She invited me to her studio, asking for my opinion on new pieces, and I felt honored to be part of her creative journey. Mark, too, became a son to me in every way that mattered. He called for advice on everything from cooking to fixing a leaky faucet, and he never missed an opportunity to thank me for raising such a strong, loving woman. Their home was filled with laughter, music, and the comforting chaos of a life well lived. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Vanessa made an announcement that took my breath away. "Mom, Mark and I have some news. We're expecting a baby." The room erupted in cheers and happy tears. I hugged Vanessa tightly, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. "You're going to be a wonderful mother," I whispered, my heart full. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparations, shopping for baby clothes, painting the nursery, attending doctor's appointments. Vanessa included me in every step, asking for my advice, sharing her hopes and fears. I cherished every moment, grateful for the chance to be part of this new chapter in her life. As Vanessa's due date approached, I found myself reflecting on the journey we had taken. The pain of being left out of her wedding had faded, replaced by a deeper, more resilient love. We had learned to forgive, to listen, to trust each other again. Our bond was stronger than ever, forged in the fires of misunderstanding and healed by the power of love. The day Vanessa went into labor, she called me from the hospital, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Mom, I need you. Can you come?" I dropped everything and rushed to her side, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering words of encouragement and love. When her daughter, my granddaughter, was finally born, I wept tears of joy, overwhelmed by the miracle of new life and the unbreakable bond between generations. As I held that tiny baby in my arms, I realized that the gift I had sent to Vanessa on her wedding day had been more than a box of memories. It had been a bridge, a way back to each other, a path to forgiveness, a promise that love endures, no matter what. The arrival of my granddaughter, whom Vanessa and Mark named Hope, brought a new kind of light into all our lives. From the moment I first held her, tiny and perfect, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment I hadn't known in years. Hope's presence seemed to heal every lingering ache, her laughter echoing through the house like a song. Vanessa and I marveled at her tiny fingers, her curious eyes, and the way she seemed to recognize our voices from the very start. Vanessa leaned on me in those early weeks, and I was grateful to be needed. I helped with midnight feedings, changed diapers, and soothed Hope when she cried. Sometimes in the quiet hours of the night, Vanessa would sit beside me, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched Hope sleep. "I don't know how you did this alone, Mom," she whispered once, her voice full of awe and gratitude. "You were so strong." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You find strength you never knew you had when you become a mother. And you're not alone, Vanessa. I'm here. Always." As the weeks turned into months, our family settled into a new rhythm. Sunday dinners now included a high chair and a chorus of baby giggles. Mark became a doting father, and I watched with pride as Vanessa blossomed into a loving, patient mother. She asked for my advice often, and I offered it gently, remembering how important it was to feel trusted and supported. One afternoon, as we sat in the garden with Hope bundled in a blanket, Vanessa turned to me, her eyes shining with tears. "I want to thank you again, Mom, for everything, for the gift you sent, for forgiving me, for being here now. I don't know what I would do without you." I squeezed her hand, my heart full. "You don't have to thank me, sweetheart. This is what family is for. We find our way back to each other no matter what." Hope grew quickly, her first smile, her first laugh, her first steps celebrated by all of us. Vanessa captured every milestone in photos and paintings, filling their home with reminders of how far we had come. She even created a new piece of art, a collage of memories, old and new, centered around the wooden box I had given her on her wedding day. It hung in their living room, a testament to forgiveness, resilience, and the enduring power of love. As the seasons changed, so did our lives. Vanessa returned to work at the gallery, and I helped care for Hope during the day. We spent our afternoons in the park, reading stories, feeding ducks, and watching the world go by. Sometimes I would catch Vanessa watching us from the window, a soft smile on her face, and I knew she was grateful for the bond we shared. One evening, as we sat together after dinner, Vanessa asked, "Mom, do you ever wish things had happened differently? That you'd been at my wedding?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Of course I wish I could have been there, but if things hadn't happened the way they did, we might not be as close as we are now. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the greatest blessings. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I'm glad we found our way back. I want Hope to grow up knowing how important family is, how important forgiveness is." I smiled, holding Hope close. "She will, Vanessa. She already does." As I tucked Hope into her crib that night, I whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for second chances, for healing, for the love that had brought us all together. I knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but I also knew that we were strong enough to face them together. The years that followed were filled with the kind of ordinary magic that makes life beautiful. Hope grew from a babbling baby into a curious, bright-eyed child, her laughter a constant melody in our lives. Vanessa and I became partners in her upbringing, sharing the joys and challenges of motherhood and grandmotherhood. We celebrated birthdays and holidays, created new traditions, and filled our days with simple pleasures, picnics in the park, baking cookies on rainy days afternoons, and painting together in the garden. Vanessa's art continued to flourish, her work gaining recognition beyond the local gallery. She was invited to show her paintings in neighboring cities, and sometimes even traveled for exhibitions. On those trips, I would stay with Mark and Hope, our little routines bringing us closer. Mark often confided in me, seeking advice on everything from parenting to career changes. I was grateful for the trust he placed in me and for the family we had become. One summer, Vanessa was invited to display her work at a prestigious art festival. She was nervous, unsure if her pieces would be well received. The night before the opening, she called me, her voice trembling. "Mom, what if no one likes my work? What if I fail?" I listened, remembering all the times I had felt the same fear. "Vanessa, your art is a reflection of your heart. It's honest, and that's what people connect with. No matter what happens, I am so proud of you, and so is Hope. You're showing her what it means to be brave." The festival was a triumph. Vanessa's paintings drew crowds, and she was interviewed by a local magazine. Hope and I watched from the sidelines, cheering her on. Afterward, Vanessa hugged me tightly, tears of joy in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." As Hope grew older, she became more curious about the story of our family. One evening, as we sat together looking through old photo albums, she pointed to a picture of Vanessa in her wedding dress. "Grandma, why weren't you at Mommy's wedding?" The question caught me off guard, but I answered honestly. Sometimes people make mistakes, and it takes time to find our way back to each other. But what matters is that we did. We forgave, and now we have each other. Hope nodded, her young mind accepting the answer. "I'm glad you're here now." "So am I, sweetheart," I said, hugging her close. The wooden box I had given Vanessa on her wedding day remained a cherished symbol in our family. It was no longer just a collection of memories, but a reminder of the journey we had taken, the pain, the forgiveness, the love that had brought us back together. Vanessa added new mementos over the years. Hope's first drawing, a pressed flower from our garden, a ticket stub from her first school play. The box became a living history, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As I grew older, I found myself reflecting more often on the twists and turns of our story. I realized that the greatest gifts are not always the ones we plan, but the ones that come from the heart, given in moments of vulnerability and hope. The gift I had sent to Vanessa on her wedding day had changed everything, not just for her, but for all of us. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Vanessa joined me on the porch, Hope playing at our feet. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. "Mom," Vanessa said softly, "thank you for never giving up on me. For loving me through everything." I smiled, my heart full. "That's what mothers do, Vanessa. We love, we forgive, and we hold on to hope." As the stars appeared, I knew that our story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more joys, more memories to create, but whatever the future held, we would face it together, bound by love, strengthened by forgiveness, and forever changed by a simple gift that had brought us home. The seasons continued their gentle cycle, each year adding new layers to our family's story. Hope started school, her boundless curiosity and kindness quickly making her a favorite among teachers and classmates. Vanessa and I walked her to the bus stop every morning, waving until the yellow bus turned the corner. In the afternoons, we'd wait on the porch, sharing stories and sipping tea, eager to hear about Hope's adventures. One autumn afternoon, as leaves drifted down in golden spirals, Hope came home with a school project, a family tree. She spread out her colored pencils and paper on the kitchen table, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Grandma, will you help me?" she asked, her eyes shining. Together, we traced the branches of our family, adding names and little drawings. Vanessa with her paintbrush, Mark with his guitar, me with a book in hand. When Hope finished, she looked at the tree, her face thoughtful. "Our family is strong," she said. "Even when things were hard, we stayed together." I hugged her, my heart swelling with pride. "That's right, Hope. Families aren't perfect, but we always find our way back to each other." As the years passed, our family continued to grow and change. Vanessa's art career flourished, and she began teaching classes at the local community center, inspiring a new generation of artists. Mark started a small music school, sharing his love of guitar with children and adults alike. Hope discovered a passion for writing, filling notebook after notebook with stories and poems. Our home was filled with creativity, laughter, and the quiet comfort of belonging. Every year on Hope's birthday, Vanessa and I would add a new memento to the wooden box, the one that had started it all: a birthday candle, a ribbon from a favorite dress, a tiny clay sculpture Hope made in art class. The box became a living testament to our journey, a reminder of the love and forgiveness that had brought us together. One winter, as snow fell softly outside, Vanessa and I sat by the fire, reminiscing about the past. She turned to me, her expression serious. "Mom, do you ever think about that day? The day you sent the box?" I nodded, the memory still vivid. "I do. I remember how scared I was, how much it hurt not to be there. But I also remember the hope I felt when I put that box together. I wanted you to know that no matter what, you were loved." Vanessa reached for my hand, her grip warm and steady. It worked, Mom. It saved us. I don't know where we'd be if you hadn't reached out. I smiled, tears in my eyes. We all make mistakes, Vanessa. What matters is that we forgive, that we keep trying. That's what family is. Hope joined us then, curling up beside me with a book. Will you read to me, Grandma? She asked, her voice sleepy. I opened the book, my heart full, and began to read. As the fire crackled and the snow fell, I realized that these were the moments I would cherish forever. Quiet, everyday miracles that made life beautiful. As I grew older, I found myself reflecting more often on the journey we had taken. I thought about the pain of being left out, the courage it took to reach out, and the healing that had come from a simple act of love. I realized that the greatest gifts are not always the ones we plan, but the ones that come from the heart, given in moments of vulnerability and hope. One spring, as the garden burst into bloom, Vanessa organized a family picnic beneath the old oak tree in the park. Mark played his guitar, Hope recited a poem she had written, and we all laughed and sang together. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Vanessa raised a glass in a toast. To family, she said, her voice strong and clear, to forgiveness, to love, and to the gifts that bring us home. We clinked our glasses, the sound ringing out like a promise. I looked around at the faces of the people I loved most in the world and felt a deep sense of peace. Our story had not been perfect, but it was ours, full of mistakes and miracles, heartbreak and healing, and above all, love. That night, as I sat on the porch, the stars bright above, I thought about the legacy we were leaving for Hope. I hoped she would remember not just the happy times, but the hard ones too. The times when we had to fight for each other, to forgive, to start again. I hoped she would carry the lessons of our story with her, passing them on to her own children one day. As the years went by, the wooden box remained a cherished symbol in our family. It was no longer just a collection of memories, but a reminder of the journey we had taken, the pain, the forgiveness, the love that had brought us back together. Vanessa added new mementos over the years, and Hope too began to contribute. Her first story, a pressed flower from the garden, a photograph of the three of us together. In the end, it wasn't the wedding I missed that defined our family, but the gift I sent, the act of reaching out, of choosing love over pride, of believing that it's never too late to find our way back to each other. And as I watched Hope chase fireflies in the twilight, her laughter echoing through the night, I knew that our story would live on, carried in the hearts of those who came after us, a story of forgiveness, of hope, and of the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter.